Hey, it's Hunt. You found Hunt on Saints. We're talking black and gold football. Do us a favor. Hit the like button, share your comments below, and hit that subscription button so you can get all of our content. I want to start today with something that we talked about very briefly yesterday because it broke while we were on the show. And it's the announcement that Drew Brees has been inducted into the New Orleans Saints Hall of Fame. It is breaking news because it is a story. It's not shocking to anybody. It's the first day he's eligible for that, you just put him in. And that's obvious. So it's not like a shocking situation. We all knew that day was coming, and it did yesterday. And I could sit here and rattle off Drew Brees' statistics and accomplishments and awards and his legacy as a New Orleans Saint. I could do that. Or you could just go to his Wikipedia page and just read them all because they're all there. That's not necessarily the way I wanted to go when talking about Drew Brees entering the Saints Hall of Fame. I want to do it not to inject myself into the story, but to give you my perspective on it. Because when I talk about LSU, I'm in the foxhole with you, the Tiger fan, and I've been there my entire life. When I talk about the Saints, I would prefer they win, but I'm not in there with you in the foxhole. I don't live and breathe with the black and gold. And so my perspective is a little bit different. And sometimes I think that's an interesting way to go about things. When you talk about this lineup that we have on this station, Matt lives and breathes black and gold. Hanny and Ott live and breathe black and gold. T-Bob's dad played for the Saints. And so I'm a little bit different in my perspective. And so I want to talk about living through, for me, the Drew Brees era. And to do that, I'll tell you how I grew up initially. I grew up in a Cowboys household. My dad grew up in Shreveport. In the 50s and 60s, there were no Saints. He was a Cowboys fan. They were winning Super Bowls, and he loved the Cowboys. My dad, not the most rational sports fan. We're talking about a man who still despises Louisiana Tech athletics to this day because his friends rolled his house in red and blue toilet paper when Tech beat LSU in basketball in the 90s. This man still hates Tech. Tech athletics has not played an important game in the history of ever, and he still hates them. That's the household I grew up in. Well, in the same way, Saints fans in Shreveport wanted the Saints on TV, on Fox, on Sundays before Sunday Ticket in the same time slot as the Cowboys. The Cowboys were winning Super Bowls. The Saints fans had bags over their head. My dad did not like the fact that the Saints fans wanted their games on Fox. He wanted to watch the Cowboys, so he hated the Saints. Well, I'm 6. What am I going to do? Hate the Saints. That's the way I grew up. And I'll tell you, we had a lot of funny afternoons in the Palmer house listening to the Saints get beat by 40 and then Buddy DiLiberto grabbing the microphone and going nuts. That was a pastime in my house. And that's the way that I grew up. My Cowboys fandom faded. They got to be terrible. Quincy Carter started taking snaps, and I was like, I'm out. Sorry, Taylor. And I never got it back. And until I went to college in 2006, I hated the Saints. It's just the way that it was. And I was never really around any Saints fans. I had one close friend who's a big Cowboys fan, and, I think some people in my school might have liked the Saints. They were never good, so it just never even came up. We talked about LSU. That's all we did. So I came down here, and it was in that sequence of events that was Brees going to San Diego and hurting his shoulder in the last game of the year, becoming a free agent, Hurricane Katrina, Saints moving on from Jim Haslett, and Sean Payton getting hired, and them coming together, and then Katrina and the reemergence of the Saints. And all that is happening as I in Shreveport am moving down to Baton Rouge to go to school. And the Saints were obviously spectacular in that Drew Brees intro to the city. And they had Reggie Bush, and there was excitement at all-time high. And when they got to the Super Bowl, I went to Tigerland to watch that game and was pulling for the Colts. And something happened in the fourth quarter of that game. Whether it was the pick six or the win or whatever, the happiness that I saw on all my new college friends' faces. And I went, you know what? I don't really hate the Saints. I just hated the Saints when I was 6 because my dad hated the Saints. I hate Alabama. I hate Ole Miss. I hate Auburn. I hate the St. Louis Cardinals because they compete with my team. The Saints don't compete with my team. What the hell do I care? And we got in the car and we drove down to New Orleans and we had a ball after the Saints won the Super Bowl. I was at F&M's They were giving out free shots. I think at one point they just stopped charging for drinks. Like, it was just a madhouse down there in New Orleans. And that was the very beginning of the Drew Brees era, as you all very well know. And from that point, I sat back, not living and breathing and dying with every Saints snap, like a lot of you do, but appreciating how freaking good 9 was. And I was watching on TV some Sundays. I got tickets maybe once or twice a year to go down there and watch. And to watch that guy play for his entire career in New Orleans was an absolute treat. And to watch the amount of joy that he brought so many of my new friends, my now wife, who loved the New Orleans Saints with Drew Brees there, more on that in a second. It was great. And I still put on a black shirt when I go to the Saints game, but I'm not going nuts and pulling for them. And y'all will say, well, you pull for the Bengals. Well, I pull for the Bengals until Joe gets hurt, and it's only born out of my obsession with LSU. It's a fake fandom for me in the Bengals. I hope they win. It's more of a shtick. But with the Saints, watching Drew Brees and having the pleasure of not missing that because I was watching out of hatred like my dad did for 15 years, I'm so thrilled I got to watch it because he was surgical. Y'all know this, but I mean, it was a different style of offense than really the NFL had ever seen. Brees did it differently than Tom Brady did it differently than Ben Roethlisberger did it differently than Aaron Rodgers did it. It was like surgery. And it was such a freaking treat to go in there and watch him. To add on to this story, my wife, who was living in New Orleans at the time, Brees was the height of his powers, loved Sundays, wore Saints jersey, absolutely ecstatic. Since he retired, and they haven't been very good, she doesn't even watch a play. Does not even watch a play. That's the power that Drew Brees had. He could bring people in that weren't necessarily in, and he created one of the great, well, I shouldn't say he created. He enhanced one of the great fan bases in the NFL and turned it into one of the great home fields in all of sports. And it was just an absolute treat to get to watch. It is an absolute crying shame that Drew Brees' last moments in the Superdome in black and gold were in front of no people because of COVID. An absolute shame. But I'm glad that I was converted when I came down here from college not to be programmed to despise the Saints, because that would have been a miserable existence for those 15 years that he was carving defenses up every single Sunday. I was in the Dome when he set the record for most consecutive games with a touchdown pass. It's an awesome moment. And I think now when you look back just a few years after he leaves, you realize even more so how great it was. And for me personally, I think I realized really early in the 2019 football season, like, this is something. And I don't think I took it for granted. I think I soaked every bit of it in that I could. And I hope you as Saints fans were able at times to kind of put your emotion just to the side and go, man, this is absolutely unbelievable. Because it was. And now you look back and you realize that you're removed from it, and you look at him every Sunday, and it's hard to move the football, and you're like, I don't know when that's going to happen again, but I'd really like it to happen quickly. He is, without question, the most influential and impactful athlete in the history of Louisiana sports. The guys in college right down the street are only here for 4 years. The girls in college who are right down the street are only here for 4 years. Drew Brees was here for 15, and not just any 15. The 15 years that the city needed him the most. And he was here by happenstance because of an injury and a Dolphins trainer and a new coach and a team taking a chance. And it paid off more so than maybe any free agent signing in NFL history. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.